We're live. It is Thursday, June the 11th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And as you can see, I am sitting on an Amtrak, getting ready to leave my fair city, Washington, D.C., go to New York, where I have a little speaking engagement this afternoon and a dinner with a couple good friends. I expect the connection to be pretty spotty today. My screen currently says it is reconnecting, which means I take it that it is not currently connected. This doesn't seem optimal. Eventually, Holly is going to show up. She tells me she is going to arrive late and sweaty, the relevant portion of which, from my point of view, is late. Because the thing about being late when I'm the only one on the show is that if I'm speaking and my screen tells me that I'm reconnecting, which is another word for not currently connected, then the audience currently has a blank spot on the screen where I'm supposed to be, or a frozen me in some contorted position. This is suboptimal. And so when Holly arrives, I will give her instructions that she should just keep talking if I blink out, because right now I think I am still blinked out, and that is suboptimal. So, let's so we're going to work with what we've got right now. I think we have 2 minutes of my talking to myself and not being connected to anybody. But as I say, we're going to work with what we've got. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. It's going to be a great frickin' day. And you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. One of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that if I happen to be on a train and I happen to be talking and my screen still says that I am reconnecting, which means I am not actually connected, and we are, as a result, frozen in this weird limbo in which I am talking essentially to myself and to an increasingly annoyed group of people around me on the train, that is okay. Because, that's what it means to be a revolution in morning television. And another one of the revolutionary features, of which, as I say, there are many, is that eventually a late and sweaty Holly Berkley Fletcher will show up and will be surprised to see some kind of frozen me, or but she will know what to do. She will start talking and life will go on. Maybe the cactus will do his thing. The snowman will glare at him malevolently. And meanwhile, I will just be sitting on an Amtrak. Um, and and now I've gotten a text from John Hawkinson that I fell off. So, we're gonna try this again.
Oh, am I on here by myself? Okay. Hi. Hi, everyone. How are you? So I'm here. I'm very sweaty and I'm late because it's that time of year. It's my favorite not time of year where it no longer becomes tenable to exercise outdoors at my preferred time of sometime afternoon. Because in the morning, I try not to do anything. But now it
Hello,
is,
hello, hello. See,
imagine the trauma of coming on and the show is going and you are not here and I am on here by myself, sweaty
well,
and gross.
I was on, I started, and then I blinked out, and I figured it said reconnecting, and I figured this is normal train stuff. And so, I was just sitting here talking, figuring that eventually I would reconnect, not knowing you had shown up. And now it says
Sound like a robot.
reconnecting. Now it says reconnecting again. So I don't know if you can hear me at all.
You sound like a robot. You sound like an AI Ben, which is probably not too far off the real Ben, I would think.
That that's
Um,
right.
and yeah.
So we are now moving, which means things are only going to get worse. Um, and all right, so the rule is, Holly, anytime I blink out, you just start talking.
Okay, well, I can do that. Should we do the cactus? I was in the middle of kind of a monologue. Should I finish that?
Yes, you should finish it.
Okay. So I'm doing the monologue today, apparently, and I was just complaining that it is now officially too warm to exercise outdoors in the afternoon, forcing me to get up or try to get up and exercise at 7 a.m., at which time I feel like death and my physical performance is not good. My physical performance is not good anyway at my age. I am trying to get back into running. I used to be super into running. I ran a couple marathons 10 years ago and I kept running for many years and I still have been running somewhat the last few years, but I've also been injuring myself frequently. And that's how old people get old, by the way. You think when you're like 40 something and you're running and you think like, oh, well, this is it. All I have to do is just keep running and I'm going to be like 95 and doing marathons and like you just have to keep going. Yeah, so then that doesn't work out because when you injure yourself and then it takes you every time you injure yourself, it takes you like twice as long to get back to where you were, and then you actually are never back where you were because then you keep aging. So I am at the point now where I've where I am in my training process for the 10 miler I signed up for in the fall. I am not achieving the goals. I am run walking still. I'm still suffering mightily. I'm not at the endorphin phase of running where you feel you get into like you get past like a couple miles and you start to feel like you rule the world and it's amazing. Yeah, I just feel like death the whole time. But I signed up for this race with my friend who's doing much better than me and is older than me and it's really embarrassing. And so, yeah, I got up and went out, and I thought I had plenty of time to get back and even maybe take a shower. And my pace was so abysmal that I did not have time. So here I am. I'm drenched wet. I feel like death. And yeah,
But is the sun
but it's
shining?
done. And it's done.
Is the sun shining?
It is shining, but that's not when you're, I'd rather it be a little overcast.
Are the birds chirping?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of day is it going to be, Holly?
It's going to be a great effing day.
And what does the cactus have to say about that?
That's basically me on my run.
Yeah.
I got in about 1/10 of the way and I was just like,
Well, I
but guess what? It's done. And now I have the rest of my day.
that is awesome. Um, and you know, and you also have the rest of the show because I'm going to blink out repeatedly, and so I think the way this is going to work is I am going to ask Holly questions, and
Oh,
Holly is going to monologue.
and I'll just run my mouth. That's how my husband, that's our all of our early dates. He just asked me a question and then I'd be like, "Oh, well, blah, 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 blah." And then like at the end of the night I was like, that's a great date." And then I started like assessing, and I realized like, "Oh, that he did not talk at all."
Well, that's interesting because it would raise the question of why he thought it was a good date. Maybe because he didn't talk.
He doesn't, he
He
prefers
he prefers
that
not
I
to
talk.
talk. Yeah.
And I guess what I say is interesting. So,
All right, so let's do it. Here is the first question, Holly. Um, Tell us about the Atlantis hotel complex in Nassau, the Bahamas.
oh my gosh, guys. So I will context. Um, I had a blog. I started blogging, as it used to be called, back in the ancient days of the internet. Let's see, I started around the time my daughter was born, so about 2008. And it was like a mommy blog, but it was kind of an anti-mommy blog because like all the mommy blogs were basically like, ribbons and pinkness and cute. And here's this recipe for like homemade goldfish crackers. And my child is like dressed matching with the sunshine and it was like nauseating. I basically hated the whole mommy culture. So my blog was called Motherhood for the Phobic, which I was. I did not want to. I never wanted to become a mother, and there's nothing about it that appeals to me really, except for having adult. I always say I had children so that I could one day have adult children, and I'm almost
You're
there. And
getting
I have to
close.
say it was all worth it. Yeah, yeah. My daughter basically is an adult, and she is an absolute delight. I love spending time with her. She is a remarkable human being, and my son shows potential. So yeah, so I had this blog, and anyway, so I would, and it was a humor blog, pretty much all, if like it was all humor, and some of it was quite good, I have to say. Some of it was
Some of
not.
it's yeah,
So
it's funny.
read some of it. Yeah, some of it was good, some of
The
it was meh. It
the
was meh.
Atlantis review was very funny.
But yeah, so I imported all of those into my Substack when I started my Substack, which you can do easily. If you have a blog somewhere else, you can easily import it into the Substack. And the Atlantis one, I remembered it because I was referencing that episode of going on to the Atlantis in another post. And I reread it, and guys, it is funny, man. I like crack myself up. But basically, has anyone been to in the chat? Have you been to Atlantis in the Bahamas? It is basically my nightmare. I hate these venues that you're supposed to, if you have kids, you're supposed to want to go there, like Disney and these I hate those fucking places. I mean, large amounts of small children just right there. I mean, panic attack. Like I will literally like lose my mind. I cannot stand one small child of someone that I enjoy, like Nastia, Ava. I had brunch and I've had a couple meals with Ava, and Ava is lovely. She is one baby, and I like her mother and her father quite well, and so that's fine. But like massive amounts of small children, of strangers, and most of them are not people I would want to hang out with. That's a no for me. Lots of crowds, that's a no. Like massive assemblies of people, that's a no for me. And Atlantis is all of that. And I told my husband I did not want to go. I told him I would not be well behaved. I told him that the children would hate it. I told him that it would be a disaster. And he didn't listen to me. He insisted that we go because he saw this really cool ad on TV. If something's advertised on TV, like you don't want to go there. That means there's a lot of people that are going to see that ad and they're also going to go there. And that means you do not want to go there. Okay. So if you see something advertised on TV, even if it looks cool, don't go there.
But what
Okay. Number
I have a
travel rule number.
important question. What does badly behaved Holly consist of? When
Like basically meltdown, like panic attack. I have anxiety. I take medication. It's no secret. I get overwhelmed. My particular anxiety is basically I get overstimulated and overwhelmed. Like if there's too many choices, there's too many people, there's too much, there's too, and especially if the logistics, if there's like complicated logistics and there's too many people, and also I just don't want to be there, then I get real I get real like um so yeah, that's what it is. And you don't want to be
okay, so
around
it's
me.
it's not
Um
badly behaved.
and if and
It's
like
just
I and I'm actually
stressed.
fine on my own. Huh?
It's not badly
Yeah, I get
behaved.
stressed, and
It's just
I'm actually fine on
stressed.
my own. But when you add like, yeah, yeah. But if you add like also like not only am I in this situation taking care of myself and navigating the world as my own self, but I then you add like you're also responsible for two small children. Like, no, that's I basically tried to never leave my house when my children were small. Um, that was my strategy. So anyway, Atlantis is this big like beach resort, although you literally it's hard to find the fucking beach. Like it's I mean, you know it's there. It's called a beach resort. It's in the Bahamas, which are islands, and you could see the beach from my balcony. We had a balcony, and you could see the ocean in the distance. But between you and the beach is all kinds of crap, like casinos and like high-end clothing stores and like little, like towel shacks and like water rides and swimming pools and cabanas and then like lawns of like chaise lounges and lots of sidewalks. There's just like sidewalks everywhere. You need like a map, but even if you have a map, there's so many sidewalks like you're not, and then they dead end like randomly in like a garden. It's like a nightmare. I don't know why any, and it's very expensive. Like they gouge you, right? Oh, I remember the Starbucks. They had a Starbucks, and I had to wait like 27 minutes for my coffee. And I was not in a state. Oh, there's like twin Ben Wittises now. I was not in a state to wait for coffee at that time. So it was an emergency. So anyway, the whole thing was really bad. But the sort of climax episode of the whole drama, the was that we almost got into like a street brawl with this other family over chaise lounges, and I'm not even kidding. So what happened was, and fortunately the mob sided with us and they had to flee. So if you're gonna get into a street brawl, make sure the mob is on your side. Otherwise, I don't recommend it. But what happened was, so the unspoken rule of Atlantis, because there's like one chase lounge for every like 200 people, okay? And they do that on purpose, I think, to entertain the staff. That's my theory. They like to see like human resource driven conflict for entertainment. That's the only thing I can figure. So the unspoken rule of Atlantis is that you get up early, you send someone down as like an advanced team, and you stake out your chaise lounges. And so once we figured that out, like we figured that out on like day two, we saw like I saw people like okay, these people are staking out their claims, so I'm going to do that too. So I would go down. I would usually, back then I was a big runner, so I would go run in the morning because it was stinking hot, right, and humid. And I would, on my way out to run, I would stake out our chaise lounges. Well, we came back and it was late in the morning by the time we got back down there with all the children and everything. We could not find our stuff. And I could swear, like I was like, I'm sure this is where I left the stuff, but it was not there. And there was this other family like lounging on what I thought I reserved. But I was like, all the chaise lounges look the same. Maybe we're in the wrong spot. This place is basically a psychosis inducing labyrinth. So maybe I'm wrong. But then Kevin spies our stuff in a bush. Our stuff in a bush. And friends, my husband, who is very even keeled, he lost his mind, man. We both lost our mind. We went like ape shit on these people. We're like, these are our chaise lounges. This is that you put our stuff in a bush. Like and they tried to play like innocent, like, oh no, like these, no, we didn't move your stuff. The staff must have moved your stuff. We didn't, we just found these chairs, whatever. And I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the crowd got involved and like someone piped up and they're like, we saw you dump their stuff in the bush. And then everybody just like piled on. They're like, this is not like how Atlantis runs. Like, you can't just like dump people's stuff in a bush and like steal a chaise lounge. And I mean, and they had to like flee for their lives with their children. And I was like shaking with anger and I was like crying. And I was like, and then I just started cursing. And there were a lot of children around. And I was just like, I hate this fucking place. This is like, why? And then I turned on Kevin, like, why did you even bring me here? Like, this is like some kind of, survivalist game. I don't want to be here. And then the very lovely people next to the Chase are now rightfully reclaimed land that was so cruelly stolen from us. They intervened and got us like calmed down. They had a bucket of beer and they offered us some of their bucket of
In the
beer.
morning.
It was, well, by that point it was like 11. It was still morning, I think, but it was getting to be somewhat acceptable. But anyway, I was like shaking, man. And then I was like, and then I was still crying. And I was like, and then I started like telling the people, like, I'm really sorry I cursed in front of your children. I feel really bad. And then I was like, like, I have anxiety. This is too much for me. I take medication. They're like, oh, well, what do you take? And I'm like, I take Zoloft. They're like, we're on Zoloft. It's amazing. I'm like, right? It's totally amazing. And then I'm like, how many milligrams are you on? And they're like, oh, we're doing 100 a day. And I'm like, oh, I only do 50, but no judgment. Maybe I should go up. Certainly on beach vacation, I should go up to 100. And we had this whole like bonding experience and they got me calmed down. And then I can't say the rest of the day was great because the whole vacation sucked, but vacation. But yeah, that's what happened at Atlantis. Oh, we also swam with a dolphin. That was very healing. Have you ever swum with a dolphin, Ben?
I have, yeah. But wait, I have
Yeah, did it heal
a
your soul just a little bit?
it healed my soul, yeah. But here's my
Mm-hmm.
question, which is if I dragged Kevin onto camera and asked him to tell the story of your trip to Atlantis, put yourself in Kevin's shoes and how would he tell the story?
He would basically it would be another episode in I married an unstable person and I took her somewhere that I knew that she didn't want to be. And then I reaped the consequences of that. And also, there were some very uncivilized people who took our chase lounges. That
And
would be
what
it.
if we
But that's
asked the
basically Kevin. That's like every day. That's Kevin. If Kevin kept a diary, that would be his entry every day. It would be like, I married an unstable person and there was an incident. No, some days though, I'm delightful the whole day, just to be
All right.
clear. Like
What
actually many
about
days.
if we asked the
Most days,
kids for the story?
especially now that children are older and then they can take care of themselves and they don't like melt down and like writhe around on the floor. Like actually I'm pretty stable these days. I was not cut out for motherhood of small children at all. Like that sent me over the
All right,
edge in every way.
so what if we asked the kids for the story? How would they tell it?
I wonder if they would remember it. Lawson was pretty young. He was like 4 or 5. And that boy, let me tell you, he's much better now. But when he was little, like I think he had some anxiety about leaving the house. I can't imagine why with a mom like me, you know? But like taking care of everything for him and totally staying calm. Why would it be an anxious situation for him? So I don't know if he would remember it at all. I think Charlotte actually had fun. I think she enjoyed, she's still here. Maybe I could yell at her and ask her. I think she enjoyed the Atlantis. Charlotte's she's game for fun. She likes to have fun. Lawson is like, do I want to have fun or do I want to make everybody around me miserable? It's a tough call. So he's much better now though. So he doesn't like to hike. We have to, if we do anything active, which is these days we're doing a lot of hiking on vacations. We're doing a lot of like national parks and things, which I love that. I love nature and being out. And again, fewer people. He but you have to bribe him to hike. We literally pay him to hike and not complain. And then we have to pay Charlotte because then it's not fair, even though she's fine.
Because
So we have to
otherwise it's
bribe
not
him
fair. Yeah.
to hike, but that works out well and he does fine, except, so I think was it last summer? Yeah, it was last summer. We were in Mount Rainier and we had paid him, well, to go on it was a vigorous hike up, not all the way up, obviously. We didn't climb the whole mountain, but we went, it was a strenuous, lengthy hike up a mountain and then like back down. And we paid him well and he was doing fine. He was making like negative facial gestures, but he was not audibly complaining. Hey Charlotte, just real quick. Hey, did you like the Atlantis vacation? Do you remember that at all? Okay. She liked it. She said she liked it. So anyway, I'm sorry, Don, but I have to finish my story. And so then we're coming down and his facial gestures are getting more and more pained. And then he just can't take it anymore. He starts like really complaining and like sitting down and, and I'm like, boy, man, we paid you, friend. Like, what is this? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a second. Let me check your shoes. Guys, he was wearing, because he had grown like hugely, like he grew like a foot in like 6 months. I'm not even kidding. And he was wearing shoes that turned out to be 3 sizes too small. And then I felt really bad. And then Kevin carried him the rest of the way down on his back, which was a lot for him. But Lawson was in actual pain. Okay, John.
Oh, hi, Holly. I just thought I would pop on to help you out when we lost Ben, but I didn't want to interrupt your stream of consciousness, although I do have some questions.
Oh, what are your questions?
Well, I understand that you're married to an economist, so I'm wondering what his analysis is of the wisdom of paying children for tasks and how, whether he's on board with that and how, how that kind of goes.
Well, John, I'll tell you, at the stage we're at now, where it's basically like too late to correct all the mistakes that we've made, it's the only thing left to do. Like you set up a system. Ideally, you set up a culture and a societal system in which people voluntarily, in which people voluntarily do the right thing. But when you don't do that, when you sort of build in systemic flaws, then you have to create economic incentives to get people to do
Well, you
the
have
right.
to create incentives. They don't necessarily have to be economic.
Well, but in this case, there's nothing else that works with him. So,
Threatened beatings.
so the incentives have to be the thing with punishment.
Let's go with positive incentives.
Those of you who aren't parents may not
I
understand.
guess, Holly, Ben is insinuating that your children might be sadomasochistic, that they might enjoy, or sorry, no, that's not the right word, but they might enjoy receipt of pain. I don't know if that's fair.
No, but here's the thing that people who may not have children don't understand, and also people who people who envy dictators don't understand is like enforcement of such systems is a lot of work.
Oh no, that's what the other children are for.
Yeah, but then you have to do something on that end. Anyway, if you just don't, we're basically like, we don't like to do any work, and we don't like to make rules because you have to enforce the rules. And our whole philosophy of parenting is just like, it'll work out. We have good genes, for the most part, other than like some mild mental illness, and it'll work out. And then you throw in some money, you know. It's worked out really well with the hiking because he's done all kinds of hiking.
Have you had to escalate?
Like pay more.
Right.
You know, he actually he could drive a hard bargain, but he generally accepts the payment offered.
Well, no, that's different. Accepting the offer and not negotiating is different from whether you have chosen to account for inflation in this
I mean,
particular market.
we pay him pretty well.
But
We
it
know
has it
what
been
we know what
constant
is
over the years, or has it
we know
increased?
what impresses him. You know, like a dollar is not that's
Right.
not impressive.
No, I understand that. Unless you're suggesting he's gotten more skeptical with age, as we all do. I'm still wondering, are you paying him now the same thing you paid him in 2018?
Uh, no, no, because his we do inflation with their age. We actually have an age-based inflation system.
Okay.
They get an allowance based on their age just to give them some money to manage. It's not that much money, but we give them just money, a little bit of money just so they have some sense of managing money. And then we pay them for additional things sometimes.
I see. And
She's about to get she's about to get paid for real in the real world this summer. So
I
What
would
is she
avoid
going to be
putting the
doing?
names of your children on this, but up to you.
yeah. Anyway, parenting is very difficult, and I just you get through it. So Charlotte is going to be helping teach Taekwondo at the studio.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
She already has been teaching for a while now, for free for the special needs kids, the adaptive Taekwondo. You probably, because you do Taekwondo, so I know you're probably aware of it. Anyway,
Yep.
she's been teaching that for a while, and she's really good at it. Actually, she's great with these kids. So she's a remarkable person. And we literally just, I birthed her, and then I like put her, and I fed her sometimes, and then she basically did the rest.
Well, that's good because and it's good that you're so equally enthusiastic about the state of both of their developments. You know that.
Yeah, no, I think Lawson's gonna be fine. You know how boys are, though. It like they take longer to bake.
Yeah, well, they're also
I mean,
they're
come on.
they're
I know I have some friends who have boys, usually eldest children. Eldest children are also more responsible as a rule. So I have some friends that have like eldest boys that are pretty kind of have their shit together at a young age, but generally not. There's definitely a gender difference, broadly speaking. So, did you have other questions, John? Because Ben has left me, and I've run out of things to say.
Oh, sorry. I was starting to drain my bacon.
Oh,
So, well, I had other more general questions, not on this topic. I don't know if anyone in the chat, has anything.
Jeff
I
asked,
didn't.
how do I cook my bacon? I tell you, Jeff, I
Is that a
buy
euphemism
bacon that's
or
already cooked.
a
Have you seen that?
metaphor?
Fully cooked bacon. I buy that, and then you just microwave it for a little bit. It's pretty awesome,
So
but it's
I
more
was
expensive.
thinking during your semi-monologue that, well, maybe you should go. I'll go in reverse chronological order. When you were talking about the knives out for the chairs, what I really thought of is a local tradition up here that I don't know anything about, because I live in Cambridge, but I understand in the city of Boston, there's a tradition of space savers when one shovels a parking spot.
Mm.
And that, woe unto he who moves the lawn chair sitting in the space that has been shoveled, because you might literally get knifed, or so I've heard. And it struck me as a very similar. I don't think Washington has this, but I don't know if you've heard about, through the grapevine about how it is in Boston.
I think I have heard that. My husband went to grad school there in at Harvard, and he had a car, but I don't think I think he tried to minimize his car usage. So I have not heard of him shoveling and saving a space with his car.
Well, we
His
don't
car,
do it in Cambridge, so I don't know where he lived, but
he lived in Cambridge.
yeah, it's
No,
not.
he lived in no, he lived in Somerville. Sorry, he lived in Somerville.
I think it is not really done in Somerville. I think they have somewhat aggressive parking enforcement, is my understanding. More aggressive than we do, actually. Well, anyway, so that was one thing. In your remarks about the concerns about exercising in the temperature, I could only think of the snowman who was on screen as you were saying this, and the thoughts that must have been going through their head. Do we know their proper pronouns?
It well, we've been calling him he, but that could be a heteronormative patriarchal instinct on my part. So I don't know. Maybe he's a they. I'm really sorry, Snowman. Snowman has his own cooling system that he's devised in a lab. And
So you're suggesting he's not like the prototypical character Olaf.
no, he doesn't melt. So obviously he has something going on. Maybe he should share with me because it would be really nice to be able to jog in August at my preferred time of say 4 p.m. and not die. That would be nice. Because I don't have any energy in the morning, by the way. You know, Churchill and also Mamie
Personally,
Eisenhower,
no.
they woke up at a decent hour, but then they worked in their pajamas. And that's pretty much what I do.
We're talking about Winston here?
Winston Churchill and also Mamie Eisenhower also did this.
I bet
They
they
did
have pretty good
not
pajamas, though.
they did not get dressed until like noon. So yeah, Churchill, unless they had to, of course, but on a normal basis, Churchill, of course, also worked in the bathtub, which I don't do that. I'm not a
And
big
also
bath.
drank very heavily.
Yeah, he drank heavily, which I also try not to do. I said try not to do.
I do think, one of the technology changes is that with laptops, working in the bathtub is a little more fraught than it is with papers. I mean, you could lose the papers too, but
Yeah, although if you drop some paper, like that's bad.
well, you don't
The
want to
thing,
use the original.
Yeah,
the thing is that
yeah,
if with laptops and bathtubs, if you drop the paper, you lose the paper. If you drop the laptop, you you kind of lose all your papers.
that's true. And also you incur an expense, a
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean,
significant
if you're
expense.
Winston Churchill, that's probably in the noise. Now that Ben is back in audio, I did want to quiz him yesterday about his long journey from Chromebook to MacBook.
No, I only travel with a Chromebook. Um, I have
Oh,
Macs. I have Mac desktops at home, but I do not use Mac laptops.
I see.
Um,
I'm a big Mac
It's
person.
a travel issue. Okay, I had misconstrued it
well,
when it had been out some time
well,
ago.
no, no, no. So the issue is uh, twofold. First of all, the Chromebook is just more secure for traveling than any laptop because you can
Sure.
brick it very easily and it has a very low amount of data that you're carrying on it. Um, and the second is you can treat them like disposable razors. You
So in the
buy
bathtub.
one for, yeah, I mean, if you buy one and it doesn't, and you lose it or it gets damaged, you just throw it away and buy another one. And so, but no, my desktops at home are Macs. Um,
Got it. Got it.
Um,
So
Someone
I do
mentioned
want to
Pamela
observe.
Dig
I
Churchill Haywood Harriman, that she is a colorful figure. That I would like to read a biography of her because she is really something. So that's a great
I
rec.
do want to I do want to observe that we did a live stream with Ruth Marcus on a train in Spain, and it worked. The live stream worked just fine. We had no glitches. The Amtrak Wi-Fi is what Nastia would call a disaster, um, and um, and I do think we should judge American trains for the quality of their Wi-Fi. That they're just not up to standards for live streaming. And I just think we should raise this with, just like we raised with the Riverside people, the chat issue. We should raise with Amazon why they have a quiet car for people who don't want to sit next to people like me. Why don't they have a live streaming car with adequate Wi-Fi for live streaming?
That would be
Agreed, but two
fantastic.
concerns with that, Ben. I was under the impression Ruth Marcus was using her own cellular data. Is that not the case?
No, she was using. First of all, I'm using my own cellular data
Oh,
too.
okay.
Going back and forth between the two as necessary. But no, Ruth was using the on train Wi-Fi, and it was impressive.
Well,
So
there we
I'm
go.
I'm just I'm just saying, not only can we not build a high speed rail in California, while the Chinese and Japanese are getting like 600-mile-an-hour maglevs going, but we can't uh, get a decent Wi-Fi connection on the slow-moving trains that we've got. I mean, we're falling behind here, people.
Okay, but we do have superior appliances, and I have another whole post that's hysterically funny, if I do say so, on the Swedish washer dryer I had once.
Before you
That
go
was
there, Holly,
there.
my second question for Ben was in the chat, I had raised that it seems to me we need a different spelling for Nastia's disaster. And I wasn't really, my knowledge of Slavic languages is really poor. I was hoping we could do something with, accents that didn't look too horrible, but somehow, with diacriticals, that somehow, made it clear that we were saying a word that wasn't disaster, but also made it intelligible to people who were not in on the scheme.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting question. So when we often text, she and I often text it to each other, and we spell it Deezastor, disaster. Um, but yeah, exactly. But we don't. You make an interesting point that's like it's not obviously Slavic if you spell it that way. Um, uh, if you wanted to make it obviously Slavic, you would use a sort of a 3 character instead of the Z. Um,
Yeah, I wasn't really going for Cyrillic, mostly because I feel like that's a challenge to type. I mean, I know that regular diacriticals are a challenge to type too, but okay, that is a great answer, and I think if it works for you guys in your chats, you can export it to the world.
Well, of course, my mission is to get every person I know to start using the Swahili word, which is shagalabagala.
Which
I
is
Yeah.
love that
spelled like it
word.
sounds.
Shagalabagala. Yeah, except there's an H. Although
So
Kenyans often drop the H. There's a here, I'll put it in the chat. It's shagalabagala. But the H is silent, so shagalabagala. Yeah. The other great Swahili expression is hivyo, indivyo, ilivyo, which is that's the way it is.
there's
Hivyo, indivyo, ilivyo.
it seems like
What
there's
is
a lot of go on, man.
and what does it literally?
It means this is how it is.
It
This
seems
is
like
indeed how it is.
It seems like your favorite Swahili uh, phrases or words have a lot of syllabic repetition.
That's
Is,
because the Swahili has a lot of syllabic repetition.
well, is
It's I
there?
call it Dr. Seuss language. It sounds like Dr. Seuss.
How does that happen?
I don't know. It's Swahili is derived from Arabic and Bantu, the Bantu group of languages.
But Arabic doesn't do that, as far as I'm aware.
Well, I think mainly it is probably Bantu is a lot of those languages have similar things. But it was kind of it's a Creole language that was basically evolved as for practical purposes. And
It's a
so
trade
it's
language,
a
right?
trade language. And so I imagine people like if you're gonna sort of slab together a language, like make it fun.
And
I don't know.
help me out. It's very few people's native language, right? It's kind of a lingua franca in
Well,
Kenya and Tanzania, but
definitely in Kenya. Along the coast, it is people's native language for sure.
That's
And
the
then
East Coast or the
Tanzania,
West Coast?
east, yeah. And then in Tanzania, it is the people's native language because the government at independence mandate like this is the language. And so
but
Tanzanians,
that but that's recent, right?
60s, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The Tanzanians will speak. There are other tribal languages, but a lot of I mean many Tanzanians very exclusively speak Swahili, and they speak very good Swahili. Unlike Kenyans, who, frankly, my Kenyans speak a lot. Most Kenyans, in my experience, their English is about as good as their Swahili, and they mash it all up. Like my best Kenyan friend, who's my cohort in the safaris that he's a safari operator. We're leading a safari together in a couple weeks. Maybe you want to go on a safari with us sometime. Keep it in mind. Um, he will like text me in Swahili, and it's like it's yeah. A lot of some grammar. He says that I sound like he's like I'll speak to him and he'll be like, "Oh, I feel like you're taking me back to school." He's like, "You sound like a broadcaster."
And when did it develop? Like, when did the Creole that we think of as
Arabic
Swahili
trades.
develop?
I think the Arabic trades goes back before the Portuguese. So the Portuguese was like 1400s. So I think it goes back to I want to say like 1200s. I don't know. I am not sure, but it goes very far back. And then there's a lot of there's Portuguese words in Swahili as well, although not very many because the Portuguese, of course, began trading and establishing forts. There's a big fort in Mombasa, for instance, Fort Jesus. So there's some Portuguese words in there. And then there's some English words in there that they've sort of Swahiliized. Yeah, and then the Kenyan, streets, it's called Shang, and it's like there anyway, I can't even understand a lot of that.
That's what they want. A private language to escape the
Yeah,
analysts.
it's kind of the youth thing. It's kind of there's the youth are always it's like our youth, the Gen Z, all the slang, they're always adding their own like so Kenyans are fun people. So they love humor. They love like kind of word play. Um, yeah. In fact, there
Shagala
was a BBC article that I keep meaning to bring up about the Kenyan president and all the Nick, who's very unpopular, and actually, and now he's like, anyway, that's another whole matter. Kenya's kind of backsliding into as he's become politically embattled. The government, the authoritarianism is creeping in again.
We wouldn't know what that's like.
Yeah. So anyway, so he's incredibly unpopular, but they have all kinds of nicknames for him. First of all, his campaign was his campaign slogan, which is amazing, was Every Hustle Matters. And he called Kenya the Hustler Nation, and he was called the Hustler in Chief. And he meant it as like a good thing, like he hustle, you know. But it worked for him. It works kind of both ways because he's a bit of a hustler for real. But then they've nicknamed him all kinds of things. El Chapo because he's like, you know, he's like austerity chopping benefits. I have to ask about Kasongo because I think that's a Congolese word for like thief. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, Kasongo is the title of a Congolese song about abandonment and heartbreak. They call him Kasongo. And my favorite is Deputy Jesus because he's super evangelical. So they call him Deputy Jesus. Chicken seller, they call him Zakayo, which is like Zacchaeus from the Bible, you know, the story of the tax collector, because he's raised taxes. And of course, they call him, chicken seller, because he came from a poor childhood and was a street vendor.
I mean, this reminds me of a language question I have long not understood that perhaps either you or Ben can address, which is why is it that there are some cultures in which people have so many alternate names? You know, around here, you know, we have 2 or 3 or maybe 4, but it's rare that, and they're usually related. You know, they share common stems. You know, maybe a diminutive. You know, changing the end of a word, but in some other places, and I think in Russian culture or Eastern European culture, there are names that multiple names. Oh, and or Arab culture, there are totally different names that don't seem to have any relationship. And I mean, you're talking about epithets, but I think the same sort of is true there. I don't know if there are any thoughts you have.
Well, in
Well,
Africa, there's a lot of like they'll have their sort of tribal, like from their ethnic community, they'll have a name. They'll often have an English or they call it a Christian name. Um, and then it's not like a clearly patriarchal society in which the surname is carried over. So sometimes they'll have both a name from their mother or their father. So it can get a little confusing. I'm always like my friends, I'll think I know their name and then they'll like text me on WhatsApp and they have like a totally different name. And I'm like, what? Oh, I didn't know that was your, and they're like, oh yeah, I go by that among these people.
Code switching. Kevin, you have something to say?
What's
yeah,
that?
so I think in the Slavic context, the explanation is different, which is just that the names actually, they have a different system for organizing names. So some of the Western Slavic countries are a little bit more Central European, but if you in Russian, your full name consists of your name, your first name, your patronymic, which is your father's name, and then your last name. And there is basically in Russian there is a way to say Mr. Hawkinson, but it's sort of never done. And so if we call you John and your patronymic, that's a very formal address. It's like calling you Mr. Hawkinson. And so what you do instead between friends is you call you whatever the nickname is for John. And that's not a chosen nickname, like, you know, it's actually really formal. And it often, like, you don't have your personal nickname.
Right.
You have, like, you know, if your name is Ivan, your nickname is Vanya. If your name is Alexander, your nickname is Sasha, right? These are just informal addresses that
Right.
are, and so people will sometimes hear you called, you know, name and patronymic. Sometimes hear you called by your nickname, and sometimes hear you called by your last name in a, if, and so it sounds like you have a lot of names, but it's actually just a different organization of names.
Right. I mean, thinking about this, I guess we probably have all encountered this to some extent in our brush with Russian literature and Russian film.
Right. And it has weakened over the years, so that now there are, for example, Nastya will, some people will call her Anastasia. And that doesn't, particularly if you're speaking in English, that doesn't sound super formal. There's also, at least, I don't know if this is true in Ukrainian language, but in Russian, the number of people who would call you, by your nickname is very small. It's like close friends, family, and other people would call you name and patronymic. And again, that's broken down a little bit in the same way as it has in French, tu and vous. Many, many more people use tu now than 30 years ago for many people. But traditionally in Russian, even people who've known each other very well over a professional career will often call each other name and patronymic in this very formal address. So I think it's not what Holly's describing, code switching with many different names for different communities. It's really just a different organization of the names for than we have in English.
Interesting. Yeah. It also suggests to me that a cultural implication that in Russia, you're more likely to be familiar with the parents of others, or at least to track that in your head, either as a function of having to use the patronymic or simply in a fashion that allows you to know the patronymic, and maybe a little of each of those.
Yeah, so the use of the patronymic is the more formal address. And, this is the extreme example of this is Iceland, where they actually only have patronymics. They don't have last names. It's a pure patronymic system such that the phone book, insofar as there's still a phone book, is listed by first names. Your name is John so-and-so's son.
Well, I mean, my name is, of course, Swedish, in case you couldn't tell, and derives from that system. But yes,
right. But I assume your father is not named Hawken.
No, that was 4 generations back.
Yeah, exactly.
When we switched the naming scheme. 2-minute warning.
Oh.
All right.
I don't have
Holly,
anything to say.
All right. Well, let's. We're going.
One item I did have was just a caution, Holly, about cactus resurrection, which was, be forewarned that those DC barrel connectors are not all compatible, and sometimes they have opposite polarities, and sometimes they have radically different voltages. And woe be the 5-volt cactus that is plugged into the 12-volt supply. Because
so we might electrocute the cactus? Is that what you're saying?
You might want to turn on a camera while you do this on the off chance that the cactus sizzles, you capture it for posterity.
Well, first I'm going to have to locate a cable, which Ben has promised me to do.
I have one for you.
Oh.
Just the danger is Ben. What if Ben's is too high a voltage?
No, I'm going to go with
this has been an eclectic show, which I think is.
I'm going to go with a 3-volt, a very gentle 3-volt, and maybe the cactus will charge very slowly.
I mean, hopefully the cactus is labeled on his underside.
The cactus definitely comes from China, and is of some quality that's not perfect. And I see no writing on here, although I probably need glasses on to. No, I don't think it's labeled. There is
No,
a picture of a battery, but it has no writing on it.
we're gonna figure it out, folks. We're gonna be back tomorrow. I will be in a hotel room, not a train.
Uh-huh.
And maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe we won't. But we're gonna be there, and it's gonna be fabulous. See you tomorrow.